So, I don't know how many of you guys have been paying attention to this, but the CDC and the FDA and various government agencies have been updating the rules on mask wearing. So originally they were basically like, wear masks everywhere just to be safe. Then eventually they acknowledge, like, okay, if you're outside, you don't really need to wear masks. If you're outside in a reasonable distance from people, you don't need to wear masks. COVID doesn't really spread outside. Hardly ever does. Maybe it does if you're literally right on top of somebody, but it's rare. And then finally they came to the position of like, okay, if you've been vaccinated, you don't even really need to wear masks inside. Now, of course, they still leave it up to private businesses to determine if the individual businesses want to have mask mandates, but they're saying, generally speaking, inside, if you're vaccinated, you're safe, you don't really need to wear a mask. Okay, so I think it's fair to criticize the various government agencies because they were kind of clearly making stuff up as they went along, and they weren't really following the signs because they didn't really know the signs. They didn't really know what was happening. And so people who question these authorities, I don't blame them at all. I mean, Fauci at one point said, you don't need to wear masks early on in this pandemic. Now, the reason he was saying that is because he was lying to protect frontline workers to try to get more masks for the frontline workers. But he should have just said, don't buy them because we need them for the frontline workers. He didn't say that. He lied and said masks don't really work. Okay. So I understand why people would be skeptical of the authorities. I'm skeptical of the authorities. I try to follow the science as best I can and almost weigh what the authorities say, but follow it. I try to follow it even closer than what the authorities are saying, if that makes sense. So anyway, now that the government agencies decided if you're vaccinated, you don't really need to wear it inside, conservatives are aggressively coming out to, I guess, do their version of an end zone dance. So there's this guy, Matt Walsh, who's a conservative commentator, and here's what he says. Wearing a mask when it is not medically necessary is grotesque and unhuman. An attack on society itself. It feeds paranoia and fear. You are treating air like it is toxic and other humans like they are nothing but vessels of disease. It is disgraceful, arrogant, and offensive. So now you have the anti-mask brigade is becoming militant in their anti-maskness. That's what we're currently watching. Look at the language he's using. So the government admits, like, okay, vaccinated people don't need to wear it inside. And this is what this guy's reaction is. Wearing a mask when it's not medically necessary is grotesque, unhuman, an attack on society itself. It feeds paranoia and fear, and you're treating air like it's toxic and other humans like they are nothing but vessels of disease. It is disgraceful, arrogant, and offensive. Offensive. These are the guys who call other people snowflakes 24/7. These are the guys who go after the libs for being triggered. These are the guys who make fun of safe spaces. It sounds like this guy needs a safe space from masks. So, listen, it's easy to dunk on this guy and have fun with it. But the fact of the matter is this. I think all of you guys already know this and agree with this, but you shouldn't be offended. If somebody's outside and they're not wearing a mask, that's fine. They don't need to wear a mask. Everybody relax. If somebody's outside and they are wearing a mask, they're being overly cautious, but that's totally fine. That's totally fine. If somebody's indoors and they're not wearing a mask and they're vaccinated, that's fine. If somebody's indoors and they're wearing a mask and they're unvaccinated or vaccinated, I think that's fine. I think it's fine. I don't know why this became the ultimate, culture war issue, but I just want to be clear that everybody participating in it looks colossally stupid. And that goes from the hardcore liberal who might sneer at you walking down the street when you're not wearing a mask, right? That's happened. Hardcore liberals see anybody not wearing a mask, even outside, and they scoff at you. I think that person's an idiot, and I also think that Matt Walsh is a total idiot, who's anti-mask as a matter of principle, and who finds it disgraceful, arrogant, and offensive if you wear a mask. Everybody should try to be safe. Everybody should try to use their common sense, and everybody should also try to mind your own business and don't be extreme. Like, if I see somebody wearing a mask or not wearing a mask in the middle of a pandemic, vaccinated or not vaccinated, it's like, okay, whatever. But a lot of people are taking these incredibly hard-line positions, and they just look goofy, and they just look silly. And honestly, looking back at a tweet like this in retrospect from the future, and this guy being considered an intellectual on the right, kind of embarrassing for the right. I mean, this guy saying stuff like this, it's like they're proudly wearing their anti-intellectualism, you know, and it's just sad. I just sort of feel bad for this guy who's 100% caught in the culture war and stuck, and he's like brainwashed by it to the point where he says deranged stuff like this. Again, my general takeaway is if somebody's outside and they're wearing a mask or not, whatever, it's fine. That's totally cool. If somebody's inside, the only ones who shouldn't be wearing masks inside are vaccinated people. Everybody else should probably wear it inside, especially if you're close to people. But that's it. You know, that's it. I'm not going to become some sort of militant weirdo obsessed with this issue and berating people. But here we are. Matt Walsh, apparently that's all he has left.